Welcome to the Author Next Door,
where we talk writing, publishing, and the business behind the books.
This podcast is for writers who are a few steps ahead into the journey. Maybe you've published, maybe you're planning what's next, and you realize the questions aren't getting easier. They're just getting more interesting.
Sometimes it's just our fabulous selves. Sometimes we bring friends to the table, but it's always lived experience and information you can use.
So pull up a chair. The conversation starts now.
Welcome to episode 53. I'm Angela Haas, and I'm here with my co-host Cassie Newell, and this month we're talking about how to start the year off right. We've talked writing goals, self-care goals, and now we need to talk about some business goals. Okay, listeners, for those of you in the now what phase, I think that's kind of our version as authors of the upside down, maybe Stranger Things. To start your year off right, if you're in that now what phase, you need to answer the following question. Is this a hobby you're writing, or are you trying to make it a career? You need to answer, am I writing my passion projects for me, or do I want to generate an income? And the answers to these questions will take you down very different paths. But if you've answered in a way that leads you down treating your publishing journey like a business, then you're in the right place, and this is the episode for you. Now, there's nothing wrong with writing for yourself or just writing your passion projects. That's fantastic. And I support anyone and love anyone out there doing it. But if you want to generate an income, you need to understand that now you are a small business owner. Starting off this episode, Cassie, my question for you is, when did you realize, or when did you start to think like a small business owner in your author career? What was that moment like for you?
So for me, it was the summer of 2024, not that long ago, actually. So because I had my own business as a consultant in my professional life, I just tied everything in earlier into different DBAs. And so I decided when I developed CK Darling as my pen name that this was the business I was going to push for. Really, I always kind of thought of it more as a hobby, and hopefully it'll be a career opportunity or something I could retire into. That might be a nice little retirement income.
Yeah.
To now making it more thoughtful business decisions and strategies for what I'm doing. Yeah.
Right. For me, running my own small business, a brick and mortar, obviously that helped me think more business wise. But I think there was something always in the back of my mind. This is a creative career. You can't make money. Obviously many authors do, but I was just thinking for myself, it was, I think, hammered into my head, like, you've got to get a job and 9 to 5 stuff and get a paycheck, and the creative stuff, that's for others, But
Yeah.
I started to realize, no, I think I can have success, but for me, I really had to start thinking streamlining costs. And that's when it really hit me. As a small business owner, especially owning a brick and mortar, you have to streamline your costs. You have to bring in more than you're spending. And when you first start out published in the self-publishing world, if you did it like I did, where I had a coach and a developmental editor and a line editor and a proof editor and a cover designer who was very expensive, it all adds up. And then, for my first book, I don't know if I'm ever going to make that money back. So now it's thinking of my business. What are my strategic goals to start getting a return on my investment? Yeah. So for listeners, though, Cassie, what would you tell someone who's, say, published 3 books and is starting to see some momentum, getting some reviews, starting to see page reads, and starting to think, okay, how do I make a shift into being more business minded?
Yeah, I think that's something you have to define for yourself personally and financially. So definitely talk to an accountant. I think that's important, especially when you're making money, because there are tax laws and things with your state and with the government that you need to be aware of because especially in the US, you will be taxed, right? And so you don't want to be surprised by those things. For me, because I already had my setup consultant business, I just knew how those things worked. So to me, it was just a little bit of a deviation. And then moving to a whole new state, that was a different conversation as I was closing things down in one and starting up things in another. So I just think you need to have some discussions with people who are business minded, who have that background and that knowledge in the area that you live in. I know that a lot of people start out when you're setting up your Amazon accounts, if that's the direction you're going as a first time writer, or even if you're going wide, you have to say where you're getting your tax information to the information that you're going to give in order to receive payment for your books as well. And those are things you need to think about. Typically, I wouldn't um, just go into it willy-nilly. A lot of people will set that up front. Other people will take some time to see if it really kicks off before they change that. So I think for me in 2024, it was more of a mindset shift of the intention of what I was producing, not only for myself, but for what I thought the market wanted or needs, and then marketing to that. Some people don't want to put in, as you talked about, a lot of money without making a return. And I look at that very differently because I think there's a short game and there's a long game. And I'm betting on myself on the long game. I may not win my bet, but I'm going to give it everything I got to see, but I'm not going to go crazy, crazy. So there's aspects of that. I also think there's teachable things within your investment that'll be write-offs. You learned from your first book. You may not achieve it in the next 5 years, but I'm going to bet you're going to achieve something in the next 5 years over what you're producing now. So I think you always have to look at those things as well, but you have to define those for yourself. It's really hard to get specific.
Yeah, there I think we can just say, here's what we learned and what we did, but everyone's author business is completely different.
Right.
So, yeah, for me, we set up a publishing company that is Spotted Owl Publishing, and so that acts as my DBA, and I think he did it as an LLC, which keeps your business and your personal stuff all completely separate. And then I got a business checking with a debit card, and I got a business credit card so that I can keep everything separate. Because for a while, everything was just going on our personal credit card, or we were writing checks or something. But
Right.
then when it came time to like, okay, well, what was this expense for? And what was this expense for? Because, as we reconcile our credit card statement every month, I have to, this is for marketing, this is for education. And then he categorizes that differently at tax time. But when I started writing, I had no idea that I had to think this on this level to keep everything organized.
You can do a sole proprietorship because I'm going backwards to do that. Or not backwards. It's just different. I don't
Hmm.
think I need limited liability. There's nothing that I'm liable for on a creative standpoint that I'm producing at this point of my career. And I don't have the income that's coming in that I really need that protection. So, but you can do all those things with a sole pop too.
Hmm.
A business card under that DBA. And um, so also it's a fictitious name when we're saying DBA. I don't know if we explained that, so I just thought I'd say that real quick.
Doing business as that's
Yeah,
what,
doing
yeah.
business as, because mine is Sassy Press and yours is the Spotted Owl. Yeah,
Spotted Owl Publishing. Yeah.
publishing.
Um, I think we just wanted more separation because we have all these other business
Other
assets.
things. Yeah, and I don't.
But I think there was something that he sold me on it because yes, the sole proprietorship is the easiest, cheapest, and there's no formal state registration needed with that. One owner
Well, it
only.
depends on the state. I'm gonna say
Yeah,
that too because I did.
right. You have full control and minimal paperwork. I think we did an LLC for mine because I think I own there was something where he owns 10% and I own 90%. Anyway, this is getting in the weeds for people, but again, um,
Talk to an accountant in your state
yes,
who's can, and tell them, you've got a creative business, you're an
right.
author, you're selling books, how you're gonna sell them, because you also need to talk about sales tax. If you do, in-person meetings and things like that.
Yeah.
That's going to be really important. And granted, we're discussing all of this from a US perspective. There are different perspectives in Europe as well, and different types of registrations. Living that I used to live in Germany, I'm a little bit aware of those things also. So
Yeah.
make sure, again, you're talking to an accountant.
And there's accountants for authors. That's their
Mhm.
business. So they understand all the questions authors have specifically. So there are all kinds of ways to find help on this topic, but it's something that you should be thinking about. Just a way to protect yourself, protect your work and your business and just run it in a more of an efficient manner. But I want to ask you too, I mean, the other main business question you should ask yourself when you're starting, or if you're in the in between, or if you're advanced, is do you go wide? Do you stay in KDP? Why did you decide in the beginning to first launch with Amazon?
So Amazon is the largest retailer in the world.
Mhm.
Doubt me.
Nope.
Come at me for that. But they kind of support having a built-in audience in that
Mhm.
retail space. So for me, it's a less struggle uphill to try to tap into those resources to find the readers that are already there. The thing with Amazon is, especially with KU, is facilitates rabid readers or whale readers, as we call them. So they are reading 200 books a year, and they're going pretty quickly and meeting their reading goals. Most people in the world read, I read the stat, no more than 5 books. Some people are lucky to read 2 in a year. So to have people that are attached in the ecosystem to Amazon, that helped me. That is facilitating my goals to build, which was my whole word last year. And that's where I decided to go. I am having different thoughts on another series for this year that I'm going to test out that I do plan to start in KU, but I plan to move pretty quickly. And I don't think I'm going to be in Audible exclusively for that one.
Okay.
So I'm going to test that out a little bit more.
Right.
But I think for what I was doing at the start, it was just really important to try to find my audience. And I still think finding your audience 1 to 3 years later is still important to help you build. And I'm not saying you can't do that in a wide forum, but I started out wide and it's an uphill battle.
Oh,
So,
really? So
yeah.
tell us about that. Tell us why starting wide was an uphill battle for you.
Well, in young adult fantasy, it's a flooded market. So if you don't have a built in audience and a name or a publisher behind you, you're talking to dead air
Mhm.
because nobody knows you. You have to build it. And it's not Field of Dreams, build it and they will come. No, they don't. You have to build it and then you have to invite and continue to market and be okay with marketing and sales and putting in the effort to build social platforms if that's the direction you're going in or what have you. And it's just a long haul. Whereas I think in Amazon, what's nice is you can follow an author, and as soon as you follow an author, as soon as I release something else, you get notified. There's all these built in aspects that we may not love as authors of what we're getting paid in terms of reimbursement for what we're putting into that company to keep that ecosystem going. But at the same time, I'm okay with it because it's helping me build.
Yeah.
And then I can direct my audience elsewhere if that's the direction I go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's always changing, but I still think it's the largest bookseller. I don't
it
think.
is.
Yeah.
Hands down.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm planning on just to keep my life simple, I'm planning on staying in there because I read something the other day. Ingram Spark made a major change that authors weren't happy
Yeah.
with. Do you know?
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was though. Do you have the specifics on that? But
Yeah, I think they're changing the costing structure, and then they're also giving you a fee, and then they're also the return of books was the big kicker. I always
Yeah.
destroyed my books versus getting them returned, but people who were using Ingram, not as necessarily in a print on demand aspect, but they were hooking them up with bookstores as well as others, those return books ended up coming out of those authors' pockets.
Yeah.
So, I think that's a big deal as well. I do think it's a hit, but here's the thing, when it comes to Amazon and print, I'll be honest, I don't love Amazon's print,
Mhm.
but I do make quite a bit of money on print, and
Mhm.
print is not exclusive, by the way. So, if you wanna test wide, test it with prints,
Mhm.
not
Yeah.
ebooks. It's just interesting to me because also there's certain genres that sell really well in print versus others. So you have to pick your battles of what you
Yeah.
want to try. And I would say don't try all the things at once because you never know what's really working if you're a data person. Even if you're not a data person, you try one thing one time, see how it rolls. But I think when people start going, okay, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z all across to see if it all works, you never know what that one thing was that was working or not working, or it all tanks. So, yeah, that's my thought process on that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great advice.
For you, how do you, I know we're talking a lot of business, but how do you personally separate your worth as a writer from the performance of a book launch or how the book is doing? Especially for me, I had a hard time because I would compare myself to other authors that are similar to me. And it took me a long time to get over that they were my colleagues, not my competition, which is just a great little thing that stays in my head now. So I'm just curious because that always seems to be something that rings up in the back of my head when I start working on my goals. And I don't know, is that something that you actively try to separate?
I try, I don't do a very good job of it. I think it's my high competition. Some of our strengths are jerks, right? When I see someone's success, I'm happy for them, but I also am like, why am I not there? I want to be there. How did they make this much money? Then I immediately, I don't know if it's the Catholic guilt or the Catholic, like, what am I doing wrong? Why do I go into this? I must be doing something wrong if I didn't sell 100 books and if I'm not having a Barnes and Noble signing. And I'm still working on that. I'm getting better. And especially with each romance book I'm putting out, because I really didn't feel like I belonged in the romance writer space at all. But with each good review, although I have to tell you about my sassy review I got at the end of this. Don't let me forget that. Um, which is positive review and people saying they love my book. It gives me hope, and I've carved out my lane, and I think okay, I do belong here, and I am worth this adventure, and I don't need to compare myself to others because I actually have some advantages that other authors don't have, and that's 30 years of toiling away in retail has given us capital to invest in my business where other authors may not have that. So there may be someone comparing themselves to us and wishing they were us. Maybe they're wishing they
Right.
had a fantastic podcast like we do. Who knows? But I mean, everyone does it, and you just have to know that you are worthy, you're here, other people are really proud of you, so you should feel the same way.
What advice would you give authors who feel the pressure to build like their full time when they're not? Because I think that's the other comparativitis that we
Yes.
suffer from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna defer to you on that.
I would say you have to remind yourself you're not full time.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because if you don't, you will burn yourself out.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you're burning the candle at both ends, and at some point you will burn yourself because you've got a full-time job that's 40 plus hours. So you have to really think about your time in terms of hours. There's only 24 hours in a day. There are certain things you have to do as an adult during those hours that are not work related, that are more relationship based, family based, whatever that is. And I think you have to, we say it too, give yourself grace because my friends that I like aspire to are full time. This is their full time hustle. My hustle is part time. And I have to remind myself of that all the time. All the time.
Yeah.
I can't stop because if I do, I will run myself absolutely ragged. And then I wonder why I can't be creative. At times I need to be creative.
Right.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I deal with it, and it's forced discussion because I'm a number 2 maximizer, by the way. I didn't know you had it too. And I'll be honest, I call him a dick. I have to wrangle it in a lot because maximizer, specifically in my strengths, it's not how to just be maximize things. It is how to make anything good to
Better.
being exceptional or great. So for me, it's always, oh, I did really good here, but I could do even better here if I did X, Y, and Z versus just going, oh no, I don't need to.
Hmm.
I don't have to. Right now,
Yeah.
this is all great. If I achieve all these things, it'll be great because it sets me up for this, which is maximizing the next step. So I think you have to know yourself and what you need in order to keep yourself level set.
Yeah. I got down on myself because this year we had to work so much more and it really zaps my creative energy and I had to really fight for it. So I tell myself that for others out there, it's like, you know what? This is just a moment in your writing career. This is a moment in your life. You never know. Keep going because I've seen people who have been working full time and they get an agent and they get a book deal and things start
Yeah.
to open up and their life changes and they can quit that job and they can focus more. So just today is today. You never know. Keep working hard, keep putting your passion into these projects, and things may change. Everyone's journey is different. Not everyone starts on the same path. Not everyone is starting, stopping, middle at the same spot. And you just need to honor where you are right now and know that could be different.
Yeah, agree. I think I took a really hard look. I had a fun little session with AI on my goals, and it was really interesting to me how it was pinpointing the things that I was saying that I didn't see myself. And then when I was reading their response back to me, just figuring out my production for this year, I was like, oh my God, they're right. I'm going to burn myself out if I don't make some pivots. So I made some changes and things where I have 3 production seasons. I call them, they're now seasons, and I have 1 light season. I had all the intention of doing that this year and it fell apart like crazy. And what happens is now I have a really high push at the beginning of this year
Hmm.
for the first 4 to 5 months. And then the rest is open. And I've never had that. I don't know how I'll do, but it gives me an opportunity actually this summer to think about 2027, which has I have lots, but no concrete ideas. So I do think too, when you think about being part time, our goals don't always mirror being part time.
Hmm.
And I had that rude awakening when I was sitting there doing it. And it was like, how many books do you think you're going to write? And I was like, wait a minute. What are you saying?
Speaking of readers, though, the last thing I want to touch on because I think this is important when you're starting to really think about writing to market. And I think we'll talk more about like what really does writing to market mean, but I think I want to save that for a down the road episode. But who is your reader? If you could talk to her or him or them right now, they're sitting across from you. Who is this person that is buying every single one of your books?
Well, I have 2 different sets of people depending on the series because I do a complete reader breakdown, so it's not that simple. In the current series that I have, The Holiday Matchmaker, these are people in their 40s actually, uh,
Mhm.
40s to 50s who like Hallmark, but they want a little spice at the
Right.
same
Okay.
time. So they're happily surprised, but they are my readership. And most of the time they're stay-at-home moms or their children have just started to fly the coop. And it's escapism. So yeah, I kind of love it.
Yeah. I remember the first time I was asked that question, I was like, older women who like superheroes, and coach was like, nah, you got to get
Yeah.
real specific.
Yeah, it's like their career choices are
Yeah.
like, I do this with, a coach, and I hope to have her on the show one time, Heidi, and, it's really interesting because I have a cozy reader, I have a sweet reader, and I have an escapist reader.
Yeah.
Um, and I actually have what their jobs are, what their family lives are. So me just telling you one thing is completely wrong, actually. So it's it's three different things depending on the series. And then my Sweetheart Scones and Story series is a younger group, which shocked me that when I did the holiday one that they were coming out older, and I was like, really? Okay, awesome. I
Right.
love that for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of interesting when you really dig into your readership. And Heidi has this great little formula that helps me out every time I start a new series so that
Yeah.
I aim myself for it. Cause I do like to write to market, even
Yeah.
though some things that I love to buck the system on, and a lot of it more trope or character driven,
Yeah.
just because I'm a pain in the butt
Well,
and I
there's a
like those
trailblazer in
challenges.
there. There's a trailblazer in you, Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I think the exercise was for me was trying to picture them sitting across from me at the table. Who really are they? What's their name? What do they do? What is their lifestyle like? And if you can picture that person, not just a men and women, ages this, and this. If you really have a person in mind and think of those people, that
yeah,
helps you write to that audience and know what they want and need out of their stories. But that's a really important part of your business is understanding who are you writing for? And again, maybe you're just writing for yourself, then a
and
lot of
that's
this
okay.
doesn't matter. And that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Write for yourself. I think we all still have to write the books we want to read, but you
Yeah.
still
I
have to
mean,
step
essentially, you
out of
are
it.
writing for
Yeah,
yourself, but
yeah,
you're giving yourself goalposts.
yeah. If I truly
Yeah.
was writing for myself, none of this shouldn't be out there in print anywhere. It wouldn't, it'd just be like dinosaur adventures for adults. I don't know. It wouldn't be, it would
I
just
love
be
it.
fodder. But I always have to think about, okay, there's things where I've had to give up in my story. Then I'm like, well, if I truly am checking the contemporary romance box, this is going a little too far off the path. We always have to kill our darlings sometimes and let go of things that may serve us, but are not truly serving the story.
Right.
And that's a business mindset, I think. It's
Yeah, absolutely. I
yeah.
mean, I had a very intentional space that I used my own experience where I got to this point where I was reading like these 1 hour books and I was just devouring them. And I was like, I can do this and do it a little
Mhm.
better. And I want to have bite sized reads for busy readers. So that's also a part of my profile for my readers. Either that or they need a palate cleanser in between. I'm happy to be your palate cleanser
Yeah,
between
exactly.
those big books and longer reads. And usually, I'm trying to hook you in like a potato chip. You can't just eat one. I'm going to get you
Right.
for a few more. Yeah. So those are my readers where they like having completion in a quick book. A 300 page book's probably pretty fine. And I have novels that'll be coming out in that vein, but a 500-page book, probably not in their domain. They probably maybe read a handful of those a year, but
Mhm.
usually probably they're more established authors that they've been with a while in big series. So I don't know. I've really learned a lot about my market. I think that's also really important for a business acumen is to study your genre and study the market and then look at readers and what they're reading and how they're reading because it's also seasonal. I really see a lot of seasonality in romance writing. It's really interesting.
Yeah, there's so much to touch on all that. We can get to some of those in the After Dark episodes,
Yeah.
seasonality and romance. So, what are your 3 takeaways from what you think having business goals, having that business mindset? What are the top 3 things we should consider?
I mean, if you're taking it really seriously in a business mindset, the top three takeaways from our discussion, I would say you definitely need to talk to an accountant if you haven't and start really looking at how to set all those processes and systems to support you up. They're really important. It's a pain. It's a slodge if you're not into that stuff, and I'm not, but get it done. Get it done. It's like going to the dentist. It's something you gotta do, and just get it done. And then the other thing I think that's really important too is don't treat your creative business as a full-time job if it isn't. I think that's really important, not only from a goal standpoint, but from an output standpoint and a mindset standpoint. Because if you're going to compare yourself to some other authors who are full time, it's going to eat you alive, especially if you have high competition or significance or strategic achiever, all these things, because those are influencing strengths and they're going to push you in that direction and it just burns you out. So, also the business acumen, I think the third point I would make is you have to consider what the short-term goals are versus the long-term goals. Those are really important, things you need to develop for yourself and what that looks like.
Yeah.
What about you, Angela?
I think expounding on, yeah, goal setting, I think is number one for me. You have to sit down and say, well, first it's actually back up. First, it's answering the question. Who are you doing this for and why? Put your
Mhm.
whys in there. Why are you here? Why, if you've published one or two books, why do you want to keep going? What are you really getting out of this? Do you want to now make this career or are you
Mhm.
just happy publishing books and putting out whatever you want and not really making it your full-time thing? It's just something you find joy in. So first answer that question. Is it a hobby or is it a career? And then from there, set your goals. Well, what's a goal? Where do you want to end up? Are they financial goals? Are they page read goals? Are they books sold goals? Ebooks, print books? Make those goals. And then from there, start making a list of business needs and business questions that you need to answer. What kind of business account do you need? Are you managing different pen names? And how does that look? How does your marketing going to be if you have a pen name? Start making some lists. And sometimes I think for creatives, all this sounds really overwhelming, but just tackle one thing at a time. Maybe you don't want to make a giant list. Just answer that one question and then start with your goals and then answer one more. But don't let it steal your creative energy. But just know that the sooner you answer these questions and get that business mindset going, it's going to save you some heartache down the road, right?
Right.
So, anyway, great episode. Now it's time for personal updates by
Yeah, talk about
Ramona.
the sassy review because, yeah, I'm not letting that go.
Okay, well, I have the Sappy review, but I also have my threads moment that I have to
Okay.
because I am still in my ashes phase of writing, still need to get back into my writing routine. So nothing new happening there. But so I got a review and it was the strangest thing because it was on My Plus One Equals You and it was a 5-star review, which I appreciate. Then they go into this grammar lesson and
No.
calling out many authors don't know this, but when you have a preposition and it's the blah, 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 and this tirade about how I should have said between you and me instead between you and I, because anyway, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but it's this grammar lesson and many authors just don't
They
get.
loved your story
Yeah, I don't know what.
regardless.
Why did you have to taint it with this? And here's the thing, I don't even know where I have the wrong form of maybe where I said
You and
Tim and
you and me.
I,
Yeah.
and you don't say the book is for I. And I know those rules, but here's the thing. Sometimes when I'm writing dialogue, characters and people don't
We'll
speak
speak that way.
correct grammar. I probably say Tim and I all the time. This is for Tim and I instead of Tim and me.
Yeah.
I probably say that. And I know the rule because, yes, I was an English major, but that doesn't mean that I'm walking around with this grammar handbook in my brain. She had 2 sentences of positive comments about the book around this grammar lesson. It just was like, why? And the thing is, I wanted to ask this person, what do we want, readers? Because we've got AI police out there looking for anything, punctuation, grammar
Just
that
so
shows
dumb,
that
but
AI
whatever.
wrote the book. But if you have grammatical errors or typos, then we don't know what we're doing as authors and we need a grammar lesson. Okay, there's a few typos, but
But I
that means
think
a human
grammar
wrote it.
can be broken in certain
Right.
aspects
Yes.
too. And
Yeah.
especially me writing Southern people. Yeah, whatever.
Right. We don't, I
Our
use those
slang
words
words,
all the
things like
time.
that. I'm
I
I'm
mean,
more guilty of a
yeah,
comma issue than
right.
anyone.
Yeah. So that was one thing. The other thing that I'm going to call out, because I will call out all bullies, there was an editor on Threads. And this very much speaks to when you're running your business. And I think we'll touch on this in another month where maybe we do deep dives into all business topics. But it's really like when you are running a business, how much, how do you conduct yourself online? Do you shame
Ugh,
authors?
no.
Well, this person was
Colleagues, not
shaming.
competition.
Right, but this editor was shaming authors and its approach too, because she was saying, "I'm tired of getting these manuscripts that are such a mess. It's not my job to
Oh, I
clean up
saw
your
that
mess."
one.
Right?
Yeah.
I didn't respond because I'm not going to respond because I care about my business and I don't want to get into it. But here's the thing. I think what she was trying to say and failing miserably as true authors, if you are trying to streamline costs, you don't want to send in a really messy manuscript to your editor. And you got to know your proof editor is not going to find plot holes. That's the developmental editor's job. And even the line editors can get into it if they notice a big continuity hole. I've had line editors say, this is really not matching. But you've got to know what your editor's job is, but at the same time, the reason I'm paying an editor is because I can't find these mistakes. My eyes are glazing over. There's times I have sent something to Amy and I'm like, just letting you know this is a mess. You may have to go into your dev editing because I can't look at it anymore. I need a break from it. My wheels are spinning. Please help me. I need other eyes on it. And I'm paying for her service.
Yeah.
But shaming indie authors who like your job is also as a proof editor to find mistakes. It's not going to be perfect, and that's the whole thing. But the way that she came about it, she could have done it so many other ways to say, hey, I've noticed this and I want to help indie authors. Here's some tips on making sure your manuscript is ready for editing. That's a teaching moment, and that'll increase your business. I'm never going to say names on this podcast, but I'm just telling you right now that person should not be an editor because they don't have the care it needs to help another human being. Boom, I'm done. End
They're
rant. But
just going to browbeat their authors
yeah,
who submit things to them.
my
Yeah.
God.
And I'd get tired of that really fast.
Yeah. So, what are your personal?
My personal updates. Well, yeah, I figured out I'm cutting a book this year, and I figured out that one of my series is going to be one book longer. So I actually was planning on the Holiday Matchmaker series. I have a book that comes out here at the end of the month, which I'm really excited about. And I thought, oh,
Nice.
I'm going to write two more books for the end of the year launches. And after my little come to Jesus moment that I'm part time, it's going to be one book and that's just going to complete the series. I love when my little strategic is kicking off and all my creative little buttons. And I was like, oh, how I'm going to tie it into my Blazing Heart series and how this is all connecting. And I just had this big epiphany and I reached out to my um, audiobook production company, and I'm just really pumped. So we'll see how it all turns out. It's hard because I also sent everything to my editor, what my year looks like, how I want to get in those schedules because everybody's getting so booked. I have to book them at the beginning of the year to make sure things work.
Hmm.
And I also have to make sure all my creativity is going to go as it needs to go to make all this stuff happen. So that was my big moment, my personal
Nice.
little moment. And then kind of as we record a little bit ahead, my big thing I was doing was Stranger Things. And the final episodes came out and I cried, I laughed. I had those moments where I was holding my breath, like, oh my God, they did not. And then, of course, they didn't. And it was perfect. And I'm one of those people that was on Threads going, did everybody just think that that was like the best finale ever. And everybody's like going off, made a bunch of friends because we all
Nice.
bonded over it.
That's how it
Because
happens.
I was like, let me try this threads thing, see if I
Mhm.
can bond with some people.
Yep.
Yeah. And I was just in heaven about that. And that show, the finale stayed with me like for 4 days
It's kind of
after.
an homage to Gen Xers, isn't it?
It's a complete homage to Gen Xers. And I think that's what it is. You're reliving this crazy moment that's a mosh pit of X-Files and E.T. and all these things. And yet still so 80s, like
Mhm.
so 80s. Because the scary stuff would get to me sometimes. I don't love scary, but I don't know. It was such great payoffs to mothers, to friendships, to honoring people that died in the show. It was perfection. And I
Nostalgia.
can't say that of a lot of my favorite shows that
Mhm.
ended so abruptly and that
Yeah.
just crashed and burned.
Yeah.
Castle, I'm still upset with you.
I'm still upset
Um,
about Castle. I'm not
yeah,
over it. So,
it was horrible. And I'm not happy with Sopranos. That was
mm,
horrible to me. There's only like a handful of big like TV shows I watched forever that I loved how it ended. And
yeah.
I knew that the Duffer Brothers, they said in the very beginning, they already knew how it ended. So I was kind of in love with that they had this whole control thing.
Right.
I do think there were some seasons that were kind of cray cray, but it still all wraps up so well. And there's this moment, and I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a moment where you're wondering if they're going to redeem the villain.
Mm,
And the choice was made, and it was the perfect choice, in my opinion. But I can tell you, I feel like the guy that plays the villain, which are 3 different characters in part, he deserves an Emmy. Like,
yeah.
it was
Seen
amazing.
that.
His acting ability is amazing.
This is a perfect lead into our luminary conversation cards. So, since that's over, what TV show are you binge watching right now?
Well, I just finished it.
So, what are you going to do next?
Well, I binge watched Emily in Paris too. That's my other binge show.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm gonna try to not. Lately, I've been more associating with movies versus new shows
Mm,
because I love this one show that's out too. It's called High Potential, and I'm really excited about it coming out later in January. But it's one of those weekly, ones that I just kind of record on the weekly basis. And when I have time, I watch it, but I can't binge it, which is kind of nice. And
right.
it doesn't like pigeonhole me. So yeah, I'm kind of trying to stay away from it because I need to actively create so much in this first quarter and my first production season, first and second. So yeah, my consumption will be more books than TV. What about you?
I'm binge watching Ghosts. Ghosts.
I love that show. That's
We
one of
just
my,
started
Hetty
it.
is one of my favorite characters of
I
all
love,
time.
oh my God, all of them. I need just a whole episode on Ghosts because it's amazing. Okay. Anyway, thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to give us a review and rating wherever you listen to the podcast. It really helps us with visibility. Next week, oh my gosh, you're not going to want to miss this. We're releasing a special sneak peek of The Author Next Door After Dark. And we're going to talk about very candidly, off the cuff, picture, pajamas, a cocktail maybe. And we're just going to start with like why everyone should at least try to write romance. Some people are thinking it can never write romance, and we're both here to tell you you can. We're going to just dive into that. So, but if you're interested after this episode releases, you got to sign up for our newsletter for more. It's going to be fun. Looking forward to it. Until then, keep writing, keep doing. We'll see ya. Bye.
We're so glad you joined us for this episode of The Author Next Door.
Writing is a long game, and it's one best played with community, curiosity, and a little grace for yourself along the way.
Keep showing up, keep learning, and keep telling stories only you can tell.
We'll see you next week, right here next door.